A simple Google search, human digestive problems on the rise. Digestive cancers combined have increased 26%. This video will give you the answer as to why.
It's the revelation that most of the milk in the state of Florida and throughout much of the country was adulterated with the effects of bovine growth hormone.
With Monsanto, I didn't realize how effectively a corporation could work to get something on the marketplace. The levels of coordination they had to have. They had to get university professors into the fold. They had to get experts into the fold. They had to get reporters into the fold. They had to get the public into the fold. And of course the FDA, let's not leave them out. They had to get the federal regulators convinced that this was a fine and safe product to get it onto the marketplace. And they did that. They did that very, very well.
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history and is now available to you specifically so you can increase your profit potential.
The federal government basically rubber-stamped it before they put it on the marketplace. The longest test they did for human toxicity was 90 days on 30 rats, and then either Monsanto misreported the results to the FDA or the FDA didn't bother to look in depth at Monsanto's own studies.
The scientists within Health Canada looked very carefully at bovine growth hormone and came to very different conclusions than the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. did.
Monsanto's engineered growth hormone did not comply with safety requirements. It could be absorbed by the body and therefore did have implications for human health. Mysteriously, that conclusion was deleted from the final published version of their report.
I personally was very concerned that there's a very serious problem of secrecy, conspiracy, and things of that nature. We have been pressured and coerced to pass drugs of questionable safety, including the RBST.
We wrote the story. We had it ready a week beforehand. They'd bought ads.
Farmers in the milk industry say it's safe, but studies suggest a link to cancer. Don't miss this special report from the investigator.
That Friday night before the Monday this series was to begin, the fax machine spit out a letter from this very high-priced lawyer in New York that Monsanto had hired. It contained a lot of things that were just off-the-wall false, just demonstrably false. But if you didn't know the story and you didn't know how we had gone about producing it, would have scared you as a broadcaster, as a manager.
And they decided that they would pull the story and they would just check it one more time.
Long story short, all the factual information that these reporters tried to bring to the American people in regards to the bovine growth hormone was shut down and never aired, and you had to go look at the documentary that these two reporters got together and made on their own, and very few people have seen it. So we're going to take a look at the bovine growth hormone, and I think it should be very important to everybody throughout the world to know the science and strategy when it comes to creating a product that people ingest or take into their body by any other means. My body, my choice, and it should always be your choice whether or not you take something into your body. And it should not be put on the shelves in grocery stores without truthful scientific information given to the public in regards to it, whether it be GMOs or the bovine growth hormone. So this concerns the health of not just you, but your family and relatives. So let's dig in a little bit deeper, and I hope you'll watch this whole video, and I'll put a playlist of everything that I've used to put this information together for you. I hope you will watch it and come to understanding of how the FDA, corporations, and pharmaceutical companies work to bring products to market. As first, they have to convince the producer that they will have increased product and increased profits without any regards to a long-term effect on the producer or the public health.
In cahoots with the corporations, the big pharma, corrupt to the core.
The journey to that podium started in the early 90s with the introduction in the US of a new synthetic drug that was going to transform dairy farming, bovine growth hormone, also known as BST. It made milk cows more productive.
Well, it works. I mean, you give this cow a shot, and 4 days later, the milk production's up 10 pounds a day, and you give her another shot 2 weeks later, and it's up another up 2 or 3 pounds, another shot 2 weeks later, then you get another 3 or 4 pounds, and the sky's the limit.
But there was another side to the good news story for dairy farmers. American farmer Chuck Knight saw increased milk production.
This cow, you can see, started out 120 pounds.
But soon 70% of his herd had serious health problems, including mastitis. Production dropped. In 8 months, he was losing money.
So, is it fair to say that the worst cow in your herd today is the one that got the most BST treatment?
Right.
The best cow in your herd today is the cow that got none?
Correct.
It's that simple?
Yes. I mean, figures don't lie.
Senator Feingold's office.
Russell Feingold was a senator from Wisconsin. He studied the effects of the new hormone and didn't like what he discovered. But what really rankled was the hard-sell tactics of the drug manufacturer, Monsanto, to promote the drug and to stifle critics like him.
They apparently fly all over the country like a team, like a SWAT team, to go against this effort to try to do something about BGH. And I was told at one point that virtually every agricultural lobbyist in Washington had been contacted or even hired in part to try to do something to stop our efforts. So it is very intense, it's very extensive.
Monsanto's sales pitch was also happening in Ottawa, but was encountering unexpected opposition from regulators in Health Canada. They seemed to be on the threshold of approval here. They'd already cleared important regulatory hurdles. But scientists in the Bureau of Veterinary Drugs, mainly Dr. Margaret Hayden, were raising serious objections about possible effects of the drug on animal health. She wouldn't go on the record then, but she can talk about it now.
I reviewed the submissions, and if there was missing data or if the data was unsatisfactory to demonstrate safety and efficacy, then I would not recommend that the drug be approved. So it was basically just doing my job as required under the law.
Her strongest ally in Health Canada was another scientist, Dr. Shiv Chopra, who was also raising serious questions about the dairy drug and its potential effects on humans.
You've given me a job, I'm being paid for it, I'm going to deliver.
The job essentially was to ask questions, and they scrupulously documented the answers or lack of them. Then Dr. Hayden filed an explosive memo that Monsanto representatives had made what might have been interpreted as a bribe offer, $1 to $2 million.
When you're sitting at a meeting and that sort of thing is happening before your eyes, it's sort of an out-of-world almost feeling that, did I hear that correctly? That was my first reaction.
Inevitably, some of their meticulous and highly sensitive documentation would find its way into the public realm, notwithstanding their unimpeachable discretion. The public realm in this case was the Fifth Estate. We interviewed a senior bureaucrat in Health Canada, Dr. William Drennan, now deceased, who was also at that meeting with Monsanto.
I have a copy of a memorandum, and in it, it discusses an incident in which Monsanto is believed to have suggested that they could pay for approval of their product by a payment of $1 to $2 million. I can read it. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do know something about that.
But what is that all about then?
I'd prefer not to discuss that because that's rather privy information. It did not, I'll put it this way, it did not affect the review and has not affected the review of the submission as far as we're concerned.
What do you think the public perception will be that a company thought, rightfully or wrongly, that they could simply offer some money and expedite an approval process?
Well, I don't know what the public perception is going to be. I would hope that Canadians would realize that we're there to do a very scientific job as far as looking at these things under the regulations of the Food and Drugs Act.
This must have come as a bolt out of the blue. What was your reaction to that?
I laughed.
Some people would interpret what happened there as, and I hate the word, but it's hard to find another, as a bribe offer. Is that how it struck you?
Certainly.
Substances like the RBST, we are walking into an unknown territory. We're not now treating sick animals or sick people. We're going for economic benefit.
In 1998, they were summoned to appear before the Senate Agriculture Committee, then looking into the campaign, now underway for years, to get bovine growth hormone licensed for use in Canada. Hayden shocked the committee, disclosing that someone had tampered with sensitive files she'd kept locked away, and that she'd been present at that alleged bribe attempt.
Did you feel safe when you appeared before the Senate?
No, we didn't. We didn't feel safe. But it's an obligation. When you are invited to go before a parliamentary committee, it's your obligation.
Hormones are unlike any other drugs.
And so they appeared at the committee. The senators were sympathetic. But Chopra and Hayden would be drawn into a public controversy that would have profound long-term consequences.
And when it went before the Senate, they said, there's a cancer going on in Health Canada. Is this RBST the only drug, or are there others? I said, sir, since you ask, so I listed 12 other drugs, antibiotics, hormones, and that it exploded in front of the media. And so therefore, those issues continue to this day, and the damage to the public is continuing.
There's a very serious problem of secrecy, conspiracy, and things of that nature.
Shiv Chopra and Margaret Hayden met increased hostility in the workplace. Both ended up on stress leave. In 2004, they were fired.
So moving forward, I'd like to introduce you to what is called Codex Alimentarius, which very few people know about. And let me just read this to you real quick. The Codex Alimentarius is a collection of internationally adopted food standards and related text presented in a uniform manner, actually allowed to be put into the food that you are now eating. And we're going to go back to 2005 with Dr. Rima Libo giving you a rundown of what Codex Alimentarius is all about.
That's just the vitamin and mineral guideline. Let's talk about milk. We have recombinant bovine growth hormone, and now we can choose milk with it or milk without it, butter with it, butter without it, right? Not under Codex, because under Codex, every dairy cow on the planet must be treated with Monsanto's recombinant bovine growth hormone. Furthermore, under Codex, every animal used for food on the planet, whether it has fins, feet, or feathers, every animal on the planet must be treated with subclinical antibiotics. Must be treated with subclinical antibiotics and must be treated with exogenous growth hormones. Codex requires, mandates that all food be irradiated unless it's eaten locally and raw. All food, including organic food, of course. So is it organic afterwards? Well, of course, the organic standards are incredibly low. The organic standards allow a farmer to use veterinary drugs, including growth hormones, antibiotics, etc., on animals, and then at his whim reclassify them as organic, but farmers are our friends and they would never do that, right? Right. Codex sets limits for the dangerous industrial chemicals that you can have in your food. And the limits are incredibly high. Go to Codex Alimentarius, do a Google search, and look, there are drop-down menus at the top of the official Codex page. Look at the toxins and the veterinary chemicals and the levels that are set. They are terrifying to me, terrifying. The names of the chemicals that are permitted and the amounts of the chemicals that are permitted are terrifying to me. Why am I terrified? Well, perhaps I'm just a cowardly person. It's possible. Think about this. In 2001, 176 countries, including the United States, got together and they said there are 12 really bad organic chemicals. They're called POPs, persistent organic pollutants. There are a lot of them, but there are 12 that are so bad that nobody could disagree that those 12 POPs had to be banned worldwide. 9 of the 12 worst organic chemicals known are pesticides, not surprisingly, because they kill things. And, of course, we have many processes and enzyme systems that are very much like insects and other pests, so they're not too good for us. But Codex has different ideas. Codex has brought back seven of the 9 forbidden POPs that 176 countries banned worldwide. Dieldrin, aldrin, hexachlorobenzene. And the food that is imported from other countries that contains these substances cannot be stopped at our borders, because otherwise it would be, God forbid, a trade violation. That's how Codex works. Codex, according to the World Trade Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization joint projections. Now, I didn't make this up. Please, if you unfastened your intellectual seatbelts, put them back on again. If you do the numbers in the WHO FAO projections, the epidemiological projections, they estimate, not I, because what do I know? They estimate, they're the experts, that just the vitamin and mineral guideline alone, when it goes into global implementation on December 31st, 2009, will result in a minimum of 3 billion, that's B, bad, big, billion deaths, 1 billion through simple starvation. Those folks who die are not particularly economically successful from the point of view of the corporations. When you're starving to death, how much good can you do when the issue is how much can you buy? Not a lot. Forget them. But the next 2 billion, they will die from the preventable diseases of undernutrition. Cancer, the single most profitable condition ever known to humankind. Cardiovascular disease, a good second. Diabetes, pretty good producer. And a whole host of other preventable diseases. Who will die? Who knows? Who will live? Probably those people who are wealthy enough and powerful enough to have their own pushers of clean food and nutrients. That's who will live. You and I? Probably not. Our children? Probably not. Our grandchildren? Probably not. So we're talking about food regulations that are in fact the legalization of mandated toxicity and undernutrition. It will be illegal if there's a famine in, wherever there's a famine, to ship high nutrient density biscuits to that country, and it will be illegal to distribute them. That's what we're talking about. Codex is big and it's bad.
I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you will like and share it with your friends and relatives. And all this truthful information I got from clips of other videos I put in a playlist called Human Digestive Problems on the Rise. Now, in this playlist, you'll find every one of the videos I took little snippets out of to bring the truth to you. For the mainstream media, whether it be right-wing or left-wing, are not going to be talking about these severe problems that we have ongoing, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. And I just want to get the truth to you, let you digest that, because the truth is very healthy to take in and easily digested. And please share it with others, and thank you for watching. Link to the playlist will be down in the description, and I recommend you watch each of these in order to understand the fullness of what is going on throughout this world today. Seek the truth daily, and the truth will find you seeking.